Welcome to the Sri Lankan Understanding, a unique platform on which we explore the past, the path taken by Sri Lanka, an island in the Indian Ocean, and we look at where the country is right now in its trajectory and the potential for the future. Our topic for discussion today is higher education, diversifying for the future of this country. Our guest today is someone who has been instrumental in establishing and also in expanding a very unique university in this country. A university which currently has 9 faculties, with 2 more coming up towards the end of 2021. He is the Vice Chancellor of the Sir John Kuthalawala Defence University, Major General Milinda Peiris. Welcome to the Sri Lankan Understanding, sir. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. When we talk about higher education in our country, we go back to 1870 with the establishment of the medical college, and then we had the law college coming in, the School of Agriculture subsequently in the 1800s. The universities came thereafter. How do you see this field having evolved from then to now?
Yes, George. As you mentioned, in 1870, the Ceylon Medical College was established, and after 4 years, the Ceylon Law College was established in 1874. Then School of Agriculture was established in 1916, and thereafter there was a gap in evolving the higher education system in the country. In 1921, the University of Colombo came into being, and 1942 the University of Ceylon was established, and since then again there was a gap of about 20 years, and then only the Peradeniya University came into effect. Of course, it was part of the Ceylon University of Ceylon, and it was finally established in Peradeniya in 1952. Thereafter, again in 70s, there were 3-4 universities were established, 80s and 90s. By 2005, Sri Lanka had been able to establish at least 1 university in each province. And as of today, now we have 17 universities under University Grants Commission, and there are 5 universities established with different acts of parliament, which includes Kuthalawala Defence University also. Then it comes to almost 22 universities, plus there are almost 16 non-state higher educational institutes in Sri Lanka, recognized by the Higher Education Ministry. There is a SCACA committee which they have accredited those degrees to those institutions. So altogether we have about 36 state and non-state universities together in Sri Lanka. So once we look at how we have evolved so far, it's a good progressive progress that we have achieved so far, and a lot more to do. What is more important is not the number of universities to be established. It is the quality of graduates that we need to establish from these universities, especially for them to have the required qualities, required knowledge. Otherwise, any degree certificate also can become just a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is where we saw, even in the past, so much of emphasis being placed on education, especially higher education. I mean, if you recall, people like Sir Ivor Jennings were pioneers in this field, and they made a monumental contribution to higher education in then Ceylon. Do you think that the seeds that we sowed back then, are we reaping the harvest today?
Yes, very much. I think many years later, now almost 73 years after independence, Sri Lanka, we have been able to establish a good human capital, which is required for the sustainable development of the country. So, and also if you take world over, our scientists, our medical professionals, engineers, all of them have been gone into many very renowned establishments in the world, those who do research. And some of them are in world-class universities. They are professors in those universities. Medical professionals, they are in world-class hospitals. Engineers, they are in world-class institutions where they do world-class projects. So when you consider all these things, actually we have developed our university systems well in the country. And there are certain areas of lacunas are there. But however, as a whole, we have done it well.
Because when we look at the contribution that this sector, this is where it approaches all other sectors in the country. Education is at the core. So whether it is going into particular professions or skills development, whatever it may be, this is where education plays such a pivotal role. When we come back with our next episode of the Sri Lankan Understanding, the next segment, we're going to be looking at the process through which the military and higher education have come together at the Kotalawala Defence University. When we return with the Sri Lankan Understanding, we are in conversation today with the Vice Chancellor of the University, Major General Milinda Peiris. Back to the Sri Lankan Understanding. We're focusing on higher education and the trajectory of this country, the path it has taken from the establishment of such institutions in Sri Lanka. When we focus on the field of higher education, we're very mindful of the fact that it was in 1980 that the third Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Sir John Kotalawala, bequeathed his estate, his legendary estate, for the establishment of a defence academy. What were the factors that were considered at that point for the establishment of such an institution in this country?
Yes. In 1979, then Commander of the Army, General Dennis Perra, Commander of the Navy, Admiral Basil Gunasekara, and Commander of the Air Force, Air Chief Marshal Harry Guntilaka. Three of them have forwarded a recommendation to the government of Sri Lanka to establish a military academy for all Triforces officer cadets. Because that was a model being set up then also world over, especially in our region. We, as you know, we had all the British systems, and even the military academies, it's the same way that the Sandhurst in UK. So we had that kind of a structure. But there you don't offer a degree to an officer cadet at the end of the training. But by that time, by 1980, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, in our region itself, they have gone into offering a degree to their officer cadets when they are passing out. So Sri Lanka also, we wanted to establish the same structure of education for cadets also. As you know, in the military itself is a professional outfit, where even for your, as you know, management theory skills, then scientific theory skills, most of them have come through military, which evolves from the First World War and Second World War. Most of the new technologies have been introduced through the warfare itself. So when an officer cadet comes for training, by the time he leaves the academy or the university, he should be knowledgeable enough in his field of subject area. If it's a MBBS student, then he should be a professional military medical officer. Engineering, same. And right along the other subject fields also same. So to have that, Sri Lanka Military Academy is the place that we were also trained. So there we did not have this same education structure where we educate them in science and technology, management, all required skills which is required for an officer cadet. So with that aim only, the tri-service commanders, then the recommendation was forwarded and it was accepted. And Sri Lanka has studied. In fact, the team had gone to India in 1979 and studied the model of the National Defence Academy in India. And also they studied the model of the Australian Defence Academy, also the Armed Forces Academy there. So then with that only the KDU came into effect in 1981. The first course was commenced, and also it was established with the 1981 Bill number 68. The KDA then, Kothal Defence Academy, was established to produce required military professionals to the armed forces.
So those are the main factors that were considered. Now this is where KDU is combining two very important components of society, military and higher education. How do you see this dynamism working? It's obviously a huge contribution from both into each other. How have you experienced that within KDU?
Yes, as I said earlier also, education is in one main factor, that we have to impart them with the required knowledge, then the military training. Finally, we want to introduce an officer to the profession of arms with required knowledge. So these two synergizes the requirement of the armed forces, and especially we want to make them finally an officer and a gentleman to serve the armed forces. So all these qualities, required skills, knowledge can be brought into them by having this kind of an academy, and today it's an university. So this has spared a lot of dividends during the 30 years of conflict. We have found one of the main aim was to foster friendship and cooperation among the tri-forces. That was achieved through KDA and now KDU. And also to develop their soft skills and leadership skills, managerial skills. Those are very important for an officer to be. So those also developed. And cooperation among the tri-forces was one of the most important aspects of it, and then to introduce them to the profession of arms.
You have personally played a monumental role at this university and in the field of higher education, in addition to your military career. When you look back, this is your second term as Vice Chancellor of this university as well. You expanded it in a large way in your first term. Now we see 9 faculties with 2 more coming up. I do believe it's going to be in criminal justice and technology.
Yes.
Could you tell us more about that aspect?
Yes. Now, initially KDU did not have many faculties established. So we started off with the faculty of medicine, then faculty of law, faculty of engineering. Departments were there, but not as a faculty. So then management, built environment and spatial sciences, allied health sciences, computing, all these fields are required by the military. In fact, we have not gone into certain areas like agriculture, hospitality management, those areas, because that is not our core areas. So we have concentrated on all core areas where the military forces should have, that is from medicine to other fields. So we established faculties except the faculty of dental, because the numbers required per year is very minimal. So it's not economical to run a degree program for that, except dentistry. Rest of all the areas that is being required by the armed forces, those faculties have been established by now at KDU. The new to be the faculty of technology. That is also an area that is very important for our officers to have knowledge on maintenance of facilities, big facilities being built. So we need to maintain those. Then construction technology is another area that we need to pursue. So that's why we are coming on with that. And like Sri Lanka Army Military Academy, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, all these 3 academies are affiliated to KDU. And also Defence Services Command and Staff College, and also the new proposed NDC, National Defence College, also been affiliated to KDU. Now, the Police Academy also will be affiliated to KDU. So therefore, we need a new faculty now to cater for especially the police officers' future requirements and their challenges. That is why we are establishing the Faculty of Criminal Justice, where we will be starting off with Bachelor of Police Science and Bachelor of Criminal Psychology, and so on, time to come. And required postgraduate studies courses also been commenced already in KDU for other subject fields, but for this we'll be establishing by next year.
Excellent, excellent. There's such a huge contribution that this one university is making, not just to the military, but to the higher education sector as a whole. When we return with our next segment on the Sri Lankan understanding, we will look at another unique characteristic of this university in this country, plus the challenges and the potential for the future. We are in conversation with the Vice Chancellor of the General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University, Major General Milinda Peiris. Welcome back to the Sri Lankan Understanding. We are in conversation with Major General Milinda Peiris, and we're discussing higher education and the trajectory of this country. So before we went to the break, we looked at different aspects of the university, how it was established, the contribution it is making. But when we look at the Kotalawala Defence University and other institutions around the world, there's something quite unique that the KDU has, probably with very few other institutions globally, and that is that you have military and civilian students. How has this model worked?
That's a good question. In fact, the National Defence University concept is there over more than 25 countries in the world, and I'm sure it is more than that, but I have come across more than 25. And there also, to have civilian students, we call it day scholars, together is a new concept. Of course, before us, I think Malaysia had civil cadets in their Malaysian Defence University, where they produced them for security-related departments like immigration, customs, sometimes even for police and so on. But KDU, why we established this concept was, now our main aim of establishing KDA then was to foster cooperation and friendship among the tri-services, and also to establish camaraderie among the cadets, those who are trained together for 3 to 4 years. And finally we achieved that. During the 30 years old war, we found that they were fighting together and they had an excellent cooperation. That is one of the factors that we were able to win the war also without much of difficulties. Then there we saw at times in certain parts of the country or certain people, the civilian counterparts, the cooperation that we had among the tri-forces was not there with those counterparts. So we thought after end of conflict in 2009, we started thinking on these lines. And fortunately now His Excellency the President and then the Secretary of Defense gave the approval for us to take the day scholars into KDU. Because in most of the advanced armies also, armed forces, they have even a subject called civil military cooperation. Even when we go to America or UK or any other country for courses, we do learn about how to make cooperation, how to establish cooperation among the military and the civilians. So we thought this is an ideal scenario for us to get the civilians also to join KDU as day scholars and study together from Monday to Friday, from 8 to 14:30 hours, they will be together. Even thereafter, they will be together doing sports, extracurricular activities. So there will be a good harmony among the military and the civilian students. Thereby, because this will enhance the national security in the country, there may be so many challenges in the future also, like we never expected COVID-19. Similarly, there may be so many other unforeseen challenges that the country and the armed forces and the people of the country need to face. So to harmonize them together, this is a good concept that we have established to get the civilian students also to study alongside of the military students in the same lecture hall. So that finally, as we established the KDA for establishing friendship and cooperation and establishing the comradeship, the same can be achieved with the civilian students also. So that when they go to some district, you may find the KDU medical officers, KDU engineers, KDU military commanders in Army, Navy, Air Force, police officers, they all will talk the same language. They can work in the same grid because they were together. So that was the concept that we floated, and now we have found there's a big demand for our courses in KDU.
Absolutely. And this is where the name is now renowned in so many fields. I mean, you have a state-of-the-art hospital, which is one of the best in the country, I think, when it comes to facilities that are afforded to patients. When we go into the future, sir, how are you looking at the whole understanding of having a well-rounded, well-educated individual, a well-educated Sri Lankan, whether it be from a military perspective, whether it be from a civilian perspective? Undoubtedly, there are challenges coming our way. As the Vice Chancellor of KDU, how do you see those challenges and how do you envisage overcoming those challenges?
One is how to accommodate the demand of the students to KDU. For example, this time also more than 6,000 applicants we received for officer cadets and day scholars. But we are able to take only about 10% of them in certain degree programs. And we need to cater for foreign students also. Now KDU is one of the universities where we have the maximum number of foreign students studying at any given time, especially in the field of medicine. So to cater for this demand, because we have to expand the infrastructure, there is one area that we need to look at it. Then the other area is the quality of programs, delivery of quality degree programs, and which are required by the society, which are required by the public and private sectors. Otherwise, if you just produce a graduate where it is not required by the society or by the firms, the market, there is no market demand, then they will be kind of people without any employment, which has happened to Sri Lanka today. So that's why in our case, we ensure that any officer cadet or day scholar who's pass out from KDU, they will possess with soft skills, language proficiency, leadership qualities, managerial skills, and more than above, the patriotism. They will start loving the country, and they are the people, they will say, we can do it for the country, not that what the country can do it for you. It should be that we should train them to think first is the country and then yourself. So that's the attitudinal change that we need to do. So we are doing our best of endeavor to ensure that those good qualities, good skills have been inculcated into them, especially the self-discipline. That is where we lack in many places in the country today. So there will be self-discipline, so that when they go into the society, they'll be very productive and required kind of a citizen that we produce from KDU.
Absolutely. When you talked about the whole notion of doing for your country rather than waiting for your country to do for you, this is this sense of patriotism that sometimes we feel is severely lacking. Not slightly, but severely lacking in our country. We are very divided along the lines of community, along religion, along so many different divisions in society, but we have one uniting banner, and that is the country and citizenship in this country. This is the Sri Lankanness that we really have to promote. So whether it be the cooperation that you are doing a wonderful job with in terms of bringing the militaries together, whether it is military and civilian cooperation, whether it is inculcating that sense of belonging, understanding, respect within our country. That is something really important, and no doubt your university is making huge headway in that direction. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the Sri Lankan Understanding. You gave us a wonderful overview of not just the contribution higher education is making, but also looking at that synergy of bringing higher education and the military together, and the potential that we are going to see as we go forward, because there is a lot that can be done in this field, and no doubt it is already steps are being taken, as you have mentioned, even in terms of expansion of the KDU, and hopefully numbers will also, you will have the capacity to take in more in the years ahead, which is exactly what we need, and no doubt. So that was the Sri Lankan Understanding. We focused on higher education, the trajectory of Sri Lanka, the potential in this field, and a unique characteristic of the General Sir John Kothawala University in bringing not only the militaries together, but the civilians and the militaries together on one platform, and creating a citizen who is not only patriotic, but who is well educated, well rounded, and ready for the future. Thank you once again for joining us on the Sri Lankan Understanding, a very unique platform in this country where we focus on the trajectory of our island nation, the past, the present, and the potential for the future. Join us again next time when we undertake a similar journey.